Yo gamers, what is good? Today I have a bit of a solemn video for us all because Mario Kart 8 has officially entered its final month as the premier Mario Kart game. It's crazy, this has been an 11-year journey from its reveal to its release and now to its replacement with Mario Kart World. I just wanted to kind of casually sit back and take a drive down memory lane as we recount this game's awesome lifespan. I really don't think there's been another Nintendo game like this, or even many other games like this that have been supported for over a decade now. So with all that said, let's get in our feels and let's start off with the first ever mention of Mario Kart 8, which was publicly made in the Wii U Direct on January 23rd, 2013. Then President Mr. Iwata announced in this video presentation that the latest Mario Kart game was in development for the Wii U. We didn't really get much else besides that, but they did confirm that the game would be shown off at that year's E3 presentation. So fast forward a couple months later and we are at the Nintendo Direct at E3 2013 presentation. In this video, Nintendo announced Mario Kart 8. Keeping in line with the naming convention set by the last entry, Mario Kart 7, this title would be named after its numerical spot in the Mario Kart series, so Mario Kart 8. This game's main new mechanic was anti-gravity. Now, while this was certainly a cool idea and concept, I have to be honest, even my, what was I at that time, like 12 years old? Even my 12-year-old self was kind of like, is this really that different from just normal driving? And spoiler alert, it's not really that different, but perhaps more so than any one gameplay mechanic, this allowed the developers to get pretty creative with their track design. Okay, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let's get back to the pre-release cycle. We got a Mario Kart 8 specific direct in April of 2014. Now, funnily enough, in April of 2025, we would get a Mario Kart World themed direct, but anyways, back to Mario Kart 8. This was a 30+ minute presentation, and it pretty much wastes like 20 of those minutes. Yeah, this presentation was a product of Nintendo's patented Wii U marketing. There were a lot of skits here, and while that is kind of fun and goofy in its own way, I'm glad that Nintendo has moved away from this style of advertising to just sort of extract the core information out from these presentations and deliver it to us in a very stylish and snappy fashion. With all of that said, there was one pretty massive announcement that came towards the end of this presentation that was particularly emblematic of the dire straits Nintendo's financial situation was back during the Wii U era. Essentially, for people who purchased Mario Kart 8 within, I believe it was like the first month to 2 months of its release, you were eligible to receive a free download code for one of several Wii U games. That's right, Nintendo was just giving you a free game for buying Mario Kart 8 within its first few months on the market. And I do think this game lineup varied by region, but in North America it was New Super Mario Bros. U, The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker HD, Pikmin 3, or Wii Party U. That is just kind of insane to think about nowadays. I cannot imagine Nintendo just giving away one of their main first-party offerings for free with the purchase of another game, but I guess that is just kind of a testament to how much Nintendo was banking on Mario Kart 8 basically saving the Wii U. So, did Mario Kart 8 save the Wii U? Well, no, it did not, but it was probably the most life that system ever got post-release. This game went on to sell over 8 million units, which essentially accounted for 60% of the system user base. I think that's a pretty good retention rate, but yes, ultimately this game could not save the Wii U system. But does that mean that it was a failure of a title? Not at all. Mario Kart 8 was a fantastic game to play. It was extremely polished and had the best selection of tracks ever compiled into a Mario Kart game up until that point. I guess we'll have to see if Mario Kart World can top it. The track design, aesthetics and themes, and music were all top notch in this title, and Mario Kart 8 was probably the first time a Nintendo game looked, on a technical level, visually incredible. While the company had released numerous titles with timeless visuals thanks to brilliant art direction, that was usually a smart way to mask weaker hardware or less impressive technical graphics. With this game though, it was just straight up good looking, and I remember being quite impressed playing it on the Wii U back in 2014. I also think that it's interesting Mario Kart 8 was an extension, in a way, of the 3DS game Mario Kart 7. There had actually been quite a few titles on the Wii U that felt sort of like, I guess, the older brother of 3DS titles. We had Super Mario 3D World to the 3DS's Super Mario 3D Land, of course Mario Kart 8 to the 3DS's Mario Kart 7, Super Smash Bros. Wii U for Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS, and the list could go on. But I do think that this is an interesting insight into how even back in the early 2010s, Nintendo was building synergy between its handheld and home console development teams. And of course that would go on to lead to the Nintendo Switch, where they merged the two. Anyways, Mario Kart 8 was truly a fantastic title, and I have to say, the Star Cup in this game will likely forever be the best cup in Mario Kart history. Sunshine Airport followed by Dolphin Shoals into Electrodome, and all capped off with Mount Wario. That is just peak gameplay right there. These are all banger tracks with incredible themes, incredible music, incredible visual design, and fantastic track design. It is probably some of the most pure, fun, concentrated gameplay you can experience in this medium. Okay, glazing aside, even though I totally stand by that take, we have to move on from the release of Mario Kart 8. This was in 2014, when Nintendo was still sort of new to the whole DLC gang, and there was certainly some question about whether or not Nintendo would support this game with post-launch content. And indeed, they did, and in a pretty dramatic fashion. Now, whether this was an act of desperation, an experiment, or just something they genuinely wanted to do, the DLC for Mario Kart 8 was a really big shakeup for the series, as not only were we getting more fantastic original and retro Mario Kart tracks, we were also going to be getting crossovers with other Nintendo series. And I have to say, this was during a time where crossovers were not so oversaturated like they are now. This was before we had a ton of the Avengers stuff, a ton of the Fortnite stuff, and there wasn't a ton of the Smash Bros stuff either. So basically, when things crossed over, it still felt pretty crazy. And what better way to go crazy than starting our DLC with a Mercedes-Benz promotional event? That's right, there was a free Mercedes-Benz update to the game in the summer where you got a couple of real-life Mercedes-Benz cars. Now, I am a sucker for obscure, I was gonna say cross-media, but I guess Mercedes-Benz isn't really media, so cross-market, cross-industry things in video games. It doesn't happen a lot anymore, but I don't know, I just feel like this is one of those weird facts that in 20 years, whoever's running the Did You Know Gaming account by then, assuming we're all still alive, will make a video about like, did you know Mario Kart 8 had Mercedes-Benz, and all the new young kids will be like, that's so crazy. I don't know, stuff like that is just kind of funny to me. But the real exciting DLC was coming a little bit later, and Pack 1 released in November 2014. By the way, I think this was one of the most fun Christmas seasons Nintendo has ever had. Although the sales might not have reflected it, there really seemed to be this momentum with the Wii U. We had Mario Kart 8, we had Hyrule Warriors, Bayonetta 2, earlier that year Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, and we were about to get Captain Toad Treasure Tracker and Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. All of these games were total bangers, and fans loved them. Plus, we had this quirky Splatoon IP on the horizon, as well as a Super Mario Maker game. I don't know, it just felt like Nintendo was really locked into the Wii U at this time, at least in terms of delivering good games. Their marketing might have been weird, the Wii U still might have felt more like an exotic toy than a next generation video game system, but as a Nintendo fan, it felt like things were moving in the right direction and we were eating really well. And of course, that includes the DLC for Mario Kart 8. So Pack 1 was really great. And then, a couple of months later, in April of 2015, just shy of the game's first year anniversary, we got the second pack of DLC, which also included 200cc as a pretty unexpected addition. But this would mark the end of the content support for Mario Kart 8. At least in its Wii U form. If we go ahead about a year and a half, we arrive at the January 12th, 2017 Nintendo Switch presentation. Although this game wasn't really talked about in the presentation itself, directly after it finished, Nintendo uploaded a trailer for a new game called Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Very exciting, very mysterious, but this was indeed the Mario Kart game briefly shown off in the Nintendo Switch teaser trailer back in October of 2016. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was seemingly everything that we loved about Mario Kart 8, but even more. And yes, as the game released pretty shortly after its reveal in April of 2017, the game was that. It took everything people liked about the original and fixed some of the criticisms, as well as made some pretty fun additions. The battle mode was the star of the show though. They didn't just add 1 or 2 or even 3 battle modes. They didn't just give us 1 or 2 or 4 battle courses. They gave us 8 battle maps with 5 different battle modes, which is by far the most of any entry in the series up until that point, and unless they update Mario Kart World in the future, looks like it will still maintain the record for the most offerings of any Mario Kart game in terms of a battle mode. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe also included all of the DLC from the Wii U entry. It also had a few new characters and I think some new karts and costumes as well. This game is on track to surpass 70 million units sold worldwide, making it one of the best-selling video games of all time. There were some nice updates following the release of this game as well. We got a new kart for Link, some Labo support, and a few other fun random things here and there, but as the years went on, it seemed more and more clear that Nintendo didn't have any plans for substantial additions to this game, at least in terms of new tracks or characters or things like that. But of course, just when everybody's guard's down, that is when Nintendo decided to go in raw, because in February 2022, nearly 5 years after the game released, Nintendo announced that they would be supporting Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with a massive expansion pass. This would effectively double the size of the game, adding in another 48 tracks, and it would be spread across 6 updates with 2 cups each from February 2022 until November of 2023. So why now? Why did Nintendo wait nearly 5 years after Mario Kart 8 Deluxe released to start DLC? I have a few theories. First off, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold so well that I think it became pretty clear to Nintendo it wouldn't make sense to release a new Mario Kart game on the Nintendo Switch. And that would mean we would go a pretty long time without a mainline entry in the series. Of course, they did release the mobile game Mario Kart Tour, but for that traditional console experience, we were going on 10 years now. I think Nintendo wanted to do something to satiate the growing hunger for new Mario Kart content without necessarily giving us a new Mario Kart game. Basically, they wanted to give us an appetizer while we wait for the main course. Now, I do think another factor to consider why they started now is that the Super Smash Bros. Fire Pass DLC campaign just ended. That campaign went from early 2019 until the end of 2021. It was a good way to keep a game's support ongoing and something to look forward to throughout each Nintendo Direct. They needed something new to fill that void of an ongoing DLC campaign, and this game made perfect sense. Then, the last reason, and it was something that would become quite obvious once we actually got to play these courses, Nintendo was already making new Mario Kart content during all of this time. It's just that this content was made for Mario Kart Tour, the mobile game, which was kind of appealing to an entirely different crowd from the main Mario Kart titles. And so Nintendo decided to basically copy and paste all of the courses that were in Mario Kart Tour, but not in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, into the latter. Again, this is a great way to appetize the hunger for Mario Kart without giving us a full new game. So, did this copy-paste method work? Was it successful? Well, yeah, a ton of people bought into this DLC, but for me personally, seeing these tracks ported from the mobile game and just how much of an obvious quality drop-off there was in terms of the visuals, the track complexity, and just kind of the overall package, my hype was capped. It really was quite bizarre going from courses in the base game made all the way back in 2014 to courses now that some of them were made as recently as 2022 and just seeing how much of a disparity there was in terms of their fidelity. But then again, it's Mario Kart and it was a lot of fun to play new content here. And to the booster course passes credit, as the waves came on, the quality of the courses did seem to go up a bit. They peaked in wave 4 and then for whatever reason kind of dipped back down again for waves 5 and 6, but overall I think they achieved definitely a passable level for most of these tracks. And like I said, it was just nice to have something new to play in the Mario Kart world, as it had been so long since there was anything new to play, again at least in terms of a mainline Mario Kart experience. But once again, we had finished DLC and the future of Mario Kart was totally a mystery. 2024 marked a decade since the game's release date, and at the time we still had no idea when the next entry would arrive, but the fact that this game that was going on 8 years old, well technically a decade now with the original Wii U title, was still selling like crazy on the Nintendo Switch, I think provided a fascinating case study between the relationship of hardware and software. It's often said that software drives hardware sales, and while I think that's true, I also think that you can't entirely rule out the importance of hardware driving software sales. It's a bit of a balancing act. You have to have strong hardware and strong software, but I guess that's kind of obvious. Anyways, 2024 finished and all the hysteria online was about Nintendo Switch 2, and finally in January of 2025, the Nintendo Switch 2 was officially revealed, along with a very brief teaser for the next Mario Kart game. We had to wait 3 grueling months for the April 2nd Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, but in that presentation, Nintendo blew the lid off of their next Mario Kart entry, the first new mainline console title in for 11 years. And it would be a launch game for the Switch 2 on June 5th, which is what we are anticipating right now. So, we have entered the final month of Mario Kart 8, and I guess also Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I know there's a lot of people who are probably sick of this game and are more than ready to move on, and I am also unfathomably hyped for Mario Kart World, as it somehow looks even better than what a decade worth of anticipation could hope for, but I will always have a soft spot for this game. It grew up along me, which I know sounds cringe, but it's true. I was a middle schooler when the original came out, and now I'm about to finish college and start my MBA. Mario Kart 8 was released at a time when Nintendo was at their lowest, and now it's finishing its lifetime when Nintendo was at their highest. So many things have changed between the original game's release and now, and yet we're still playing the same Mario Kart in a way. The support it's received has been so exciting, and I just have a ton of fun with this game. I know it's been a decade, so it totally makes sense to feel nostalgic for this title, but I guess because it's received so much support over the years, it sort of feels like it's still new in a way, and somehow I'm already feeling nostalgic for it despite the successor still being a month away. So this is the final month of Mario Kart 8. It's been a long journey, but the boss can finally go to rest.